Let me start the recording. Okay. So today is um, so today is 25th January 2020, 2024. It
Mhm.
is currently 11:25 at the moment.
Yep.
So today I have a very special guest with me. His name is Mr. Thomas Abraham. He's an architect, fashion designer, author, educator. He's the founder of Idea World Design College and the creator of Crystal Hall, a sustainable glass house in Bangalore. He's also known for his furniture and fashion collections, which have been exhibited and featured internationally. He's the member of American Institute of Architects and a recipient of several awards and honors. So, how are you doing today, sir?
Fabulously. Thank God. Very well. Can you hear me?
Yes. So I'll start with my first question. Besides what have I just said? Yes, sir, I can perfectly hear you. Besides what I have just said, would you like to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I hope probably better than anything else in a professional life. I hope I'm a great human being. Probably, in fact, the best compliment anybody's ever told me is they said I have a very kind face, right? And I think that's a great compliment. You understand, right? Okay. So, and I hope I'm a good father to my daughter and a great husband to my wife, and hopefully a great son to my uh, mother, right? So if these things, if we check all these boxes, then only then will the other boxes actually make sense. So with rare exceptions, maybe Mahatma Gandhi is an exception. Okay, most often you're rooted in your personal life and from which you actually branch out into your professional life, right? If your personal
Yes.
life is stable, chances are that it will have also help. That is the root on which the other tree exactly grows. Professional life grows on it and it bears fruit. You know, right? Because eventually you come home. That is your cave. That's your refuge. That's your womb, right? And you need
Yes.
security, right?
Yes. It is very essential in understanding a man's character and what he is today by looking at his roots and foundation, especially education. You have graduated from IIT Kharagpur, right?
Yes,
With an
absolutely.
honors with a with an honors degree in architecture. So it is one of the
Yeah.
top colleges in the entire world for architecture. It is the top college in India.
Yep.
Yes. And its alumni also includes CEO of Google, Mr. Sundar Pichai.
Yeah.
Yes. How would you describe your time in the institute and how did it shape you as a person?
Okay. I'm going to say something that is an unspoken secret in the IIT community. Most IITians are great IITians by the time they enter IIT. You understand, right? Okay, because it's actually the process of getting in that already sieves out the not so great or not so good, okay, and brings in only the very best. The entire that very very difficult, let's say, what do I say, walk through fire, which is the JE entrance exams, okay, that in fact sees to it that only the best of the best, the creme de la creme, actually get into it, right? So in a sense, if you probably took the same guys who get through JE main and JE advanced, sorry, okay, and then put them to an average college, they would still do spectacularly well because the raw material is very good. It's like Gordon Ramsay says about cooking, also, and any great chef would tell you, the ingredients, raw materials actually decide how good the dish is going to be, right? So if the raw materials are fabulous, it's really difficult for a chef to make it bad unless he's really purposely setting out to do something like that. So in the sense that the my best, I think the greatest learning curve I had in IIT was not the teachers, not the building, but basically two things. One is the camaraderie among probably some of the smartest brains in the world, plus, of course, the fact that you carry the IIT brand. That gives you a confidence to conquer the world, so to speak. And it's not a
Yes.
confidence that is grounded in fiction. It's a confidence that's grounded in fact. Okay, there is, like you said, Sundar Pichai, and if you look at the list of IITians who actually form the top echelons, in, let's say, in tech world worldwide, okay, or the management world worldwide, you'll be shocked at how many of them are IITians. You understand, right? Whether it's our last, let's say, RBI governor, or the next one after him, okay, or for that matter, yeah, Kejriwal, who's the Prime Minister of,
Current
sorry,
Chief Minister
uh,
of Delhi. No, no, it's wrong.
and so forth. Yeah, the number is the number of people who are actually made it out spectacular. Yes.
Yes. It isn't very common to see an art architect to be seen in the domains of fashion and furniture designing. It seems like you're an all-rounder. You're not only make something where people live, you're also making something that people use on a daily basis and wear. So, how does a person like you manage to thrive in two completely different fields which require a separate skill set?
Once actually, it's much more than two fields. Okay. Okay. Let's handle this. Can you hear? Can you see me?
Yes, I
Yep.
can perfectly hear you.
Handle this question by question. First and foremost, and as regards as an architect who doing, let us say, fashion design, that's it's not as uncommon as you think. There's a very famous fashion designer called Pierre Cardin, right? Okay. In fact, he was actually trained as an architect. In fact, there are many, in fact, fashion designers who use a brand to design, let's say, interiors. Or in India, for that, there's Manish Malhotra, who's released a series of laminates. You understand, right? Okay. And in fact,
Yes,
he's collaborated with Gauri Khan to design interiors also of homes. Okay. Maybe it's just lending his name, but so to speak, right? So it's not uncommon for people in one creative field to branch out and encapsulate another one, because often the difference between design is only materials and scale. The principles of design remain exactly the same. And the font of creativity or the fountainhead of innovation that comes are almost exactly the same, whether they're doing fashion, whether they're doing interiors, whether they're doing architecture, whether they're doing furniture, whether they're doing product design, car design. You'll be surprised, or graphic design for that matter. Okay? You really be
yes,
surprised.
yes. Coming to your works in architecture, the Crystal Hall in Bangalore will forever remain as your magnum opus. How did this building shape you and what did it took you to make it?
Okay. Hopefully, it won't only define me as my only a magnum opus. Probably, in fact, every time I set out to do something, okay, in architecture or for that, anything for that matter, I conscientiously and consciously both set out to create a masterpiece, knowing, of course, that even masters don't always make masterpieces, right? Okay, even the great people in any field do make blunders as well as make great work. But I that but that is the actual destination when I start off. My end goal is to create something that literally changes the face of the earth, and architecture can actually do that. You understand? You literally change the face of the earth, and our building is going to be there for next 100 years minimum, God willing. So, which means you don't want it to be an eyesore to your neighbors, okay? A scar on the face of the planet. You want it to be a thing of beauty. There'll be, as John Keats said, a joy forever. You understand, right? So in that sense, yes, Crystal Hall gave me, let's say, gravitas in the art and architecture industry profession. It gave me recognition. There's no doubt in that count. Okay, but having said that, uh, there's somebody said this, right? Every overnight success, you can be sure, is preceded by years of hard work. Okay, that reaping that happens today. That sowing has happened over probably many seasons, right? Okay, so same thing. So obviously, it is building up to that, and hopefully, Crystal Hall is just the first rung in many rungs before my maker calls me back. Okay, so the way I see it, until I'm 110, I want to dive my boots on. There's a lot more to do. There's a lot more territory to conquer, a lot more nations to discover, and a lot more, let's say, frontiers to cross over.
I hope so too. Yes, coming to the architecture, I think that it is a form of art and it is a way an architect expresses himself. Similar way artist expresses himself through his artwork, like a writer
Absolutely.
expresses himself through his
Oh, you are
works.
absolutely
Yes,
right. You are absolutely right.
yes,
In fact, even
yes,
though people say architecture is the art and science of building, let me tell you frankly, the science part of architecture is actually very rudimentary. It is certainly not rocket science. It's certainly not nuclear physics. It's certainly not the theory of general theory of relativity. No. It's the science part of architecture is completely quite simple. I'm not trying to
yes,
say it's simplistic, but it certainly is simple. But the
yes,
complex thing is the art part, because an art does not have any formulas. It's intuitive, it's instinctive, and yet it has to come from the imagination of man. Okay, and it's very easy to go wrong. and to get it just right, okay, is so bloody tough. So I've never had a problem with regarding the science of architecture, but you're absolutely right. In fact, I like to think that architecture is sculpture as shelter. Initially, it's sculpture itself, and then forms becomes shelter. You understand? It's not just shelter as sculpture. In fact, your end goal is actually sculpture, right? Which of course also shelters you. In fact, I have a personal philosophy in which I've derived myself, okay, in architecture, where form follows function, follows feeling, follows philosophy. You understand, right? Okay. So which means
Yes.
the classic modern is just form follows function. Here it's form, that's the way the final building is. It follows function. Function means utility aspect of building. Then I go two steps beyond that. Then that follows the feeling, which means emotion, the art of the building, how it appeals to your heart. And that follows the philosophy, the concept, the core idea behind, in fact, even a great movie, a great book, a great anything great, even a great football match for that matter, okay, has a theme. Okay, there's a philosophical core to it. Okay, so it starts with philosophical core, then it reaches, that means, let's say, in your mind, so to speak. Then it goes to its feeling, which is your heart. Then it goes to the function, which is your body, and then it goes to the final form, which is, well, encapsulates all the preceding three F's, so to speak: philosophy, feeling, and
Yes.
function.
To me, Crystal Hall is quite peculiar work in itself. It stands as a bridge between modern era and classical era, and with a balance of sustainable and ecological growth. I kind of like the entire Crystal work architecture style. How would you describe it?
Okay, let me just tell you. Again, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Many architects will probably disagree with me here. I think the last 100 years of architecture, for that matter, the last 100 years of art, has been a step back from the trajectory of man's, let's say, tryst with art and architecture. Uh, what I'm trying to do, I call the kind of architecture I do paleo modern. Paleo means first original, and modern means, well, modern, right? So what I'm trying to do is go back to the roots of architecture, so to speak. Okay, the things that we all learn in architecture or design 101, which means proportion, rhythm, scale, harmony, uh, things like that, unity, things like that. Okay, which practically everybody in either art, fine art, applied art, architecture school, they all learn this, and yet nobody applies it beyond the first semester court exam. You write and then you forget about it. Okay, but the funny thing is, these are human universals. Okay, these are not things which are invented just for a textbook. Okay, and my point, and throughout, and all cultures, all geographies, we've been using these principles throughout. Some people use one proportion, what is called the golden mean proportion, which is 1 is to 1.618, which is actually reflecting the human body. And the other one is the square proportion, which is 1 is to 1. In India, for example, 1 is to 1 is much more popular, which also comes from the human body, by the way. You understand, right? So because we have an affinity towards those proportions that we see in the human body, because that's what whom we see all the time. We see our most of the interaction is with other human beings. Most of our definition, what is beauty is and virtue and truth is defect is vis-a-vis other human beings, and therefore we define these things by what we perceive in other human beings, and we by induction transfer it from, let's say, our perception of human beings or nature to actually our art and architecture. So I'm trying to find for modern architecture what classical architecture always had: symmetry, which modern architecture rarely has. Okay, with rare exceptions, there are of course exceptions. Okay, there's rhythm, which means things are repeated. There is something called the golden, as I mentioned, the golden mean proportion, which is 1 is to 1.618, for example. On a human hand itself, if this is 1, this is 1 is to 1.618, right? Or if this is 1, this is 1 is to 1.618. You understand, right? So it's repeated all of the human body for that matter. Okay, so I use those kind of proportions.
Yes.
Then use certain things which you'll find. Let's say it's Hindu architecture, Islamic architecture, Western architecture, Greek, whatever, grand staircases, a rhythm of colonnades. That means a lot of columns. You understand, right? Okay, or let us say water bodies are integrated within the building itself, right? Or let's say grand halls or atriums or what or darbars, whatever you call it. Okay, these are common to or let's say buildings raised up on a pedestal. Okay, okay, and all these things are common to architecture across the world, across cultures. People who have never seen each other. The Mayans never met the Chinese, and yet ironically, they have the similar, they all follow similar principles, even though the final stylistic interpretation may be different. Okay, so what I'm trying to find out from architecture, which we have, in my opinion, forgotten for over 100 years of modern and postmodern architecture, is to go back to the core of architecture, these rhythms, these scales, these unity, harmony, etc., and but use modern materials. I don't want to create one more Hampi or one more Khajuraho or one more Parthenon. But the point is to create a modern building, but using the core principles of architecture, which are eternal in my opinion. You understand? But use modern materials, because because I'm speaking to you in English. It's a modern language. I could speak to you in Malayalam. You could speak to me in Hindi, but we'll never be speaking to each other. We'll never be communicating with each other. Okay. So the point is to find a common language, and yet also to be rooted in history and tradition and in classicism. Okay, in fact, I like some olden days when people used to put a matrimonial ad in newspapers. They would say, uh, traditional at heart, modern outlook. You understand, right? Traditional at heart
Yes,
and modern. So, and in a sense, I would say the kind of architecture I do is very similar. In its essence basically means its soul, so to speak. In its soul and its source and essence, it is traditional or classical. But its outlook is very modern. So I use a lot of glass, I use a lot of steel, I use a lot of, and yet I also make it very sustainable, because which I think is very, very important. No? Because if we are not going to be kind to the planet on which we live, the planet is not going to be kind to us. At least, but very basically, okay. Besides the ethical reasons of being ecologically conscious, there's also practical reason. You know, if you are going to be bad to it, there's karma will hit you back one day or the other.
yes, it is a cycle. And coming to the next question, who is your biggest mentor in your life who you feel has brought you here today? And what kind of special relationship exists between a mentor and his students?
See, I think in all our lives, my life lets me speak to you. I would say there are three mentors. In, let's say, I'm going to do an ascending order. One is my dad. He's probably the most decent man I've ever met, and I'm not saying it because he's my dad. In a world where people are full of guile and where full of lack of integrity, okay, or lack of work ethic, I thought he was a gentleman. And I like the word gentleman because I like the English uses the word. It's not strong man, tough man, rich man, powerful man. It's gentleman. And my dad was a gentleman, okay, in every sense of the word. Okay, a quiet, stoic, you know, a man of integrity, and I would even say nobility. Okay, and I think almost everybody who knew him would agree with me, not just people who are his sons or daughters. He's one. Second thing, you may be surprised by this. Okay, let me explain to you. I'm blessed with a reasonable amount of intelligence. Okay, but I think right from childhood, for whatever reasons, I had got diverted quite a bit, and I was sure that by the time I was 15 or 16, I would shortly end up probably being a criminal mastermind, without a doubt. If I had gone the same trajectory I was actually on, and you'd be surprised, and it's not politically correct to say this today, at least. The change came in my life because I heard of a guy called Mahatma Gandhi. Now, it sounds very weird, right? Who would ever think of Mahatma Gandhi as a mentor? But actually, it did, because my dad had bought a book called Freedom at Midnight. Okay, and it was actually a hit book those days. Okay, and I saw it lying around in my home, and I started reading it, and I was astonished by what that man has achieved. Now, most Indians are not even aware what Gandhi has achieved. Okay, certainly not in India of today, where it's stylish, in fact, to put his achievements down. But the point is, if you read his autobiography, one page of his autobiography is enough to validate one person's, let's say, Wikipedia entry. If I had achieved just one page from his body, that'd be enough for me to have my own personal Wikipedia entry. You'd be surprised as to how many things he achieved in his life. So, and most things that we just know that, okay, he helped India get Indian independence, which is really not true. India actually got independence primarily because Britain was practically emaciated or emancipated both by World War II. Okay, but having said that, other things, his moral crusades, things like that, which I thought are incredible. So, and in fact, if it were not for him, where I took a U-turn, I would probably have become a criminal mastermind of some kind. Okay, he actually showed me what virtue, the value of virtue is, and that which brings me to the third, probably the most important. That's only I'm going in ascending order. Jesus Christ. Again, not just as a not just as a religious figure, but just simply as a historical figure. You understand, right? Because, and in a sense, I would say Gandhi showed me the practical aspects, and they said Jesus showed me the theory aspects. In fact, Gandhi showed me that the theory of Jesus could actually be applied in the real world against an empire, against the greatest empire the world has ever seen, largest empire the world has ever seen. Okay, so that's saying a lot. Okay, so I thought, so I loved Gandhi for the theory, sorry, for the practice, Jesus for the theory, and my dad because he, in a way, indirectly introduced me to both of them. You understand? He was, let's say, a catalyst to both of them. So I think these are my mentors, really speaking. Okay, and and I would also say I'm a man of, let's say, meditation, contemplation. You understand, right? Okay, and so I spend quite a bit of time in prayer and contemplation. So I believe in something called the inner voice, the spirit. You understand? Okay, and and like Carl Jung said, we all have a shadow aspect to us, a dark side to us, and I hope the spirit helps me sublimate my shadow into something great in my own life. Okay, because the difference between genius and criminality, between achievement and failure is very thin line. The question is whether you will able to sublimate the same seed. It can actually give you great success, or actually be the source of a downfall. And I hope I've been able to some extent, use some of my, let's say, darker sides, my shadows, so to speak, to be sublimated, to use it in my, let me, creative endeavors, etc. Because the funny thing is, the creative process is also simultaneously destructive. It is disruptive. That's a new word for it. Okay, and in that sense, it's very interesting. Okay, so and if it's, if you take the disruption to its logical end, it can be destructive also. The question is, where use the disruption and make it, let's be creative or procreative or recreative rather than destructive. That actually is a challenge if you're able to do this.
Yes, sir. And I would like to move to the next question.
Yeah.
Being an architect and a designer is not only your title, you're also well into the world and domains of literature. And it is well defined by your book, Love. How would you describe this book?
Okay. 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 Let me as a part of full disclosure, these books are in the final stage of editing. Okay, and in the stage of us reaching out publishers and agents. Right. Okay. So the books are yet to be published. But having said that, Love is one in a series of book called the Question Mark series. Right, and it has 14 titles in them. Okay, these are 14 non-fiction titles, which includes everything from love, God, free will, uh, democracy, money, things like that. There are 14 titles in that for them, climate change, all these. Okay, in which I go in depth in practically all the hot button items that excite me. Varying from diet, okay, to human relationships, are all covered in different books. And probably of all the books, the most accessible is probably the Love book. Okay, which I talk about the one mystery to most, to men and women both. What do men want women think, and what do women want men think? You understand, right? Okay, these are in fact, we've been doing this for 300,000 years. Okay, and yet to most men and women, that is a question, is still a question mark. So I've tried to delve deep into the mysteries and the vagaries and myriadness of human relationships, men and women. So a lot of the misconceptions and a lot of the conceptions that we actually got wrong. Okay, which actually because we thought they were just tradition, or we thought they were old wives' tales. But as time passed, we realized that some of the ideas that our grandparents had were probably more right than some of the ideas that we have been taught over the last 50 years. Okay, so, and I think in that sense, Indian civilization can teach the world a lot, because it is still, until at least until very recently, rooted in tradition. Okay, and tradition that was came down by filtered through centuries of, let's say, all the bad ideas we threw out, and hopefully most of the good ideas retained. So at least in comes to family relationships, man-woman relationships, a lot of the East can teach a lot of things to the West. Of course, the West also had it until over the last 100 years. revoked it. They practically dumped it so that they can embrace, let's say, uh, let's say modernist ideas. Okay, so because as I delve more and more, I my personality is by very nature very progressive and liberal. But my writing, you'll be surprised, probably comes from the other spectrum, because I've realized that a lot of the permissiveness which is there in my own personality is not always the healthiest for human society or even for human relationships. Right? Okay. So some amount of stability and conservatism is actually healthy. You understand, right? Okay. So my book is, and I think the Glove book is, when it gets published, that will probably open a lot of eyes. So these are not things that I'm written just from my own personal experience. It's well researched out. A lot of studies have been quoted, okay, from across the world for that matter, okay. And I think anybody who's interested in relationships, in the opposite sex, in sex itself, in progeny, in reproduction, all these things, I think they would find the Love book to put it mildly fascinating.
Yes. So before we move to the next question, we only have 10 minutes left to the interview, so keep your responses brief. And coming to the
Yeah.
next question, family is the cornerstone of our society. I couldn't say this earlier because we didn't meet back then, but I would like to
Mm-hmm.
congratulate you for the birth of your daughter, Aida. I'm probably not pronouncing her name right.
You're pronouncing
And
perfectly.
no, and coming to your family, how have they changed your life? And what is the most essential element required for a happy and a successful family?
Oh, well, it changed my life. I can't. There's somebody a friend of mine who knew me decades ago. She's just saw a video of me with my daughter. Yeah, and the video is hardly 30 seconds long. But within the first 3 seconds seeing me with the daughter, he said, "This little one who's 2 months old have you running around her fingers in circles? Have you wrapped around her fingers?" It's so true. And I'll proudly admit it. Okay. And I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed or ashamed about. In fact, I'm thrilled to actually admit it. Okay. If I'm besotted, obsessed, fida over somebody, absolutely being fida over your children is the most natural thing in the world, by the way. That is evolutionary right. It's scientific, by the way. Okay. The entire, let's say, end goal for any human being is, if you know Darwinian evolution theory, is reproduction, and to see that your job is to nurture them in such a way that they are successful also in reproducing the next generation. In fact, when half your job is over when you bear a child, and your full job is over when they bear a child. In other words, your DNA has been propagated by your progeny also, right? So everything is different. The very fact that it's ironic, right? I mean, I obviously love my wife. I love my wife a lot. We even prior to marriage. But funny thing is, from the time she became pregnant, the love transformed itself from, let's say, a testosterone love to, let's say, an oxytocin love. Okay, a love which is let's say very aggressive, to a love which is very, in fact, oxytocin is actually called the love hormone or the cuddle hormone. You understand, right? A love is very warm and fuzzy and lasting and right. So, and in fact, my love for her actually has increased. Okay, and then and now I understand sometimes why men, when their wives are carrying or when they're breastfeeding their babies or when they're taking care of them, and they see how good mothers they are, your love for your wife actually grows exponentially. That, of course, you're presuming you're a decent husband yourself. Okay, if you could be a lousy person, then of course that makes no difference. Okay, if you're an average good person, you would be able to see that. Okay, because you actually see how what a good mother she is, and then automatically you almost automatically end up being a good husband. So yes, I think family is the foundation. Our relationship go in concentric circles. Your first relationship on the horizontal plane is with yourself. You need to have a stable, solid relationship with yourself. Love yourself, there's no doubt. But love is not just within yourself. Love is between you and another human being. So that on the first circle is your family and immediate family first. And once you're married, the immediate family is not your parents, it's your wife and then your children in reverse order. And then the circles around them, maybe your siblings and then your cousins and then your neighbors and your clan, your tribe, your nation, your species, and your all nature for that matter. It follows that way. Okay, and the stronger the bond is, strongest bond is obviously is the most in the low in is in the circle which has the least radius. That is, the more compact the circle, the circle, the stronger the love bond is. And I know it's a cliche. What makes a relationship succeed? I could go on about this for hours, but if I had to use one word, there's only one word for it. I think we all know that word, isn't it? It's love. Okay, it's such a cliche, it's embarrassing to say it, but there is no other way to say it. And I think everybody from Bertrand Russell, who was, let's say, an atheist, okay, to Elon Musk, okay, who's probably one of the is the living genius of our time, we'll all agree that what we call love, or what do you want to call it, Christian love, or family love, or spousal love, or agape love, whatever you want to call it, it is a defining thing, the defining thing. And all other things, where justice and virtue and truth and beauty are all subservient to that. You understand, right? Okay. And I think love is a defining thing because finally we all know that God is love. We know that. So, that's it. I'm not saying love is God, there's a different thing, but I'm saying God is love. So which means effectively when you love somebody, I would like to say you are in God with somebody, so to speak. You understand? In fact, as your horizontal relationships grow in love, your vertical relationship from you to heaven above also grows because it's not a flat circle, it's actually a sphere. Okay.
Yes. So I think we're nearing the end now. Before
Okay.
we end this interview, what message would you like to give to our audience?
Okay. I would like to end with one of the most impactful, small, let's say, anecdotal, not anecdotal, let's say a parable. Uh, a master had 3 servants. He was going to go on a long journey. And so to each servant, he gives a certain amount of money. To the first servant, he gives him 5 gold coins. Okay. And tells him to keep it. To the second gold coin servant, he gives around 10 gold coins. He asks him to keep it safely. And the third servant also, he gives around 15 gold coins. Now he goes on a long journey, and after a few days, he comes back. Then he asks the first servant, okay, I gave you those 5 gold coins. What do you do with them? And the first servant said, I took the 5 gold coins, invested it, and made it 10 gold coins. Okay. And the master was very impressed, said, okay, very good, well done, faithful servant. Okay, I'm going to give you a promotion and probably give you even more gold coins to do with. The second servant asked, what do you do with your 15 gold coins? He said, put in a bank. I got some interest, not money, not much, but I still grew the amount of gold coins you gave me. Whether the word for gold coins in this story, the original word for gold coin is the word talent. You'll understand where I'm coming from. So to the third servant, he said, I gave you 15 talents. What do you do with them? He said, I took those talents and hid it under the ground because I knew that when you come back, I don't want to lose even one talent. Then I gave it back to you. And the master was furious with the third servant. He said, you have been unfaithful because I gave you those talents, so to speak, to make the best use of them. The word talent, in fact, which we use in normal, we say, I have a talent or I have a gift. Okay, this comes from this particular parable. It originally meant a gold coin. It basically means we are all given talents. Some could be a talent of wealth, some could be talent of intelligence, some could be talent of verbal skills, some could be talent of sports, some could be talent of whatever, or good looks, whatever it is. The question is to find out the purpose of your life, discover where your real talents lie, and then enhance it, use it for your good and for the rest of the world itself. And that will give that is in a sense is the purpose of your life, to use the talents which you have been bestowed with at birth, and using and finding that purpose will give your life meaning. Because finally, as a philosopher called Viktor Frankl said, it is the will to meaning that gives life, well, meaning, so to speak. You understand, right? So find your talents, and using a talent will give it purpose, and finding a purpose will give your life meaning. And by which time, and therefore use your talents to multiply it. Incidentally, that story is from the Bible. It's not something I invented. It's a story where Jesus told his people. It's one of my favorite stories. Okay, because we all have talents. We all have it. Could be born in a good family. Maybe you have good education. maybe you have good looks, maybe you have height, maybe you have something, something, something. We all have something, by the way. We all have something.
Okay, so the
Use,
session is about to end in 30 seconds.
yeah,
Okay,
I'm good.
thank you. Okay, that would be all. Thank you so much, sir. It is an honor to speak with you.
My
We are
pleasure.
only limited. We are only limited by our time. Otherwise, I would have spent hours talking to you.
Absolutely, my pleasure,
Okay,
Vansh. My pleasure.
thank you
And
so much.
wishes to you. My best wishes to all your endeavors in the future. You know, God bless you, and I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous career ahead of you. And I mean that. My best wishes.